Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Ninamani, Nainari Louise Miller-Frost, Naikatinya Nari, Ninamani Nadlu Gana Yurta, Nadlu Nanawala Nambri Yurta, Nadlu Tambiti, Paku Yurta, Nadlu Nanawala Nambri Yatanga Tampinti. What I just said was, hello, my name is Louise Miller-Frost. I'm the firstborn female in my family. I come from Ghana land, and I acknowledge that I'm on the land of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, and I respect their land and acknowledge that they are the traditional owners of the land. This is the language of the Kaurna people, the First Nations people of the Adelaide Plains, the place where I am privileged to live, work and represent here in Canberra. And as I speak these words into Hansard, I reflect on the history of the Kaurna language. The lands of the Kaurna people is the Adelaide Plains, and it extends to the north of Adelaide around Crystal Brook and to the south at Cape Jarvis. When European settlers came to South Australia and founded Adelaide, the Kaurna people were pushed off the fertile plains. They were sent to missions on the lands of the Nurrungeri people near the Coorong and the Narungga people of York Peninsula, and their culture was suppressed. The language was lost, completely died out, and it was only through the work of school principal Auntie Alicia Willara Rigney and linguist Dr Rob Amory in the 1980s, who researched through written records, letters written home by German missionaries, that the language was rediscovered and rebuilt. And so I reflect on practices that eliminated something as important as culture and language, and the impact colonisation had and still has on First Nations people. But I also reflect on the importance of written records, without which we would not know the Kaurna language today. And I reassure Hansard that I will be providing them with the text of the words. Speaker, it's my very great honour to represent the people of Boothby in South Australia. When I was first elected in 2022, the first Labor member in 73 years, and I was very honoured to have been returned by the people of Boothby in 2025. It's wonderful to be back here in Canberra with my colleagues. We have a larger majority in the House and 2 additional senators. Every single member of the Labor class of 22 has been returned, and with the exception of those retiring from the last election, every single one of my colleagues has been returned. Some, like the former member for Higgins, Michelle Anandaraja, whose seat was eliminated in a redistribution, is back as a senator for Victoria. And moving in the other direction, former Senator Anne Urquhart stepped down as a senator for Tasmania and has successfully won a seat in the House of Representatives, and we welcome her as the member for Braddon. South Australia was a very exciting place on election night. We had birthday cake at the Boothby election party for Charlotte Walker, who turned 21 on election night, and shortly thereafter discovered, as third on the Labor ticket, that she had been elected as the youngest ever senator. Senator Walker is a great addition to the Labor caucus, building on an important aspect that the Prime Minister often comments on. We are a caucus that reflects modern Australia, diverse in gender, cultural origin, career paths and age. Every voice is important. I also welcome my friend Claire Clutterham as the new member for Sturt. The Sturt electorate voted for Claire, returning the electorate to Labor for the first time since 1972, and a female representative for the first time ever. It still shocks me that we have to say the first female so often and in so many spheres of life. The people of Adelaide have put their trust in Labor, and we will work every day to ensure that they know their trust and their vote was well placed. I'd like to put on record my thanks to the many volunteers who supported me in the Boothby campaign, door knocking, phone calling, supporting me at events, letterboxing and, of course, pre-poll. Day and night, in good weather and bad, they came out day after day after day because they knew it mattered. They knew that only a Labor government would look after our community and our economy. Only a Labor government will do the necessary work of energy transition that is vital for mitigating climate change. The catastrophic algal bloom that is currently ravaging the coastline in my electorate, as well as much of metropolitan and regional South Australia coastlines, is not an early sign of climate change. It's a late sign. Maybe it's a too late sign. The algal bloom is twice the size of the ACT and up to 20 metres deep in places. For years, decades, we've been warned about the impact of climate change on our oceans, rising ocean temperatures, changed ocean currents, failing ecosystems, catastrophic die-offs of marine life. And now we are seeing it in the fish, the rays, the dolphins and sharks, the grasses, sponges and shellfish being washed up on our shores, dead. Climate change should no longer be a debate. Net zero by 2050 is the bare minimum, and the idea that it is still being debated, that there still might be political points to be made by casting doubt, working against it or delaying it, as we saw with environmental legislation in the last parliament, in this place and the other, is shocking. We are elected here to do what is right for our country and for Australians, not to score political points at their expense. A livable climate is the bare minimum. Only a Labor government will do the necessary work of energy transition that is vital to mitigating climate change. In the last term of government, 80 large-scale renewable projects were approved and another 130 were in the process of approval. This is really important work. We need to decarbonise if we are going to have any possibility of maintaining a livable environment. We are already decades behind where we should be. We cannot have further delays. And we invite those opposite and those in the other place to join us on this most critical fight and to do what is right for our environment, for our country and for our planet. Only a Labor government will protect the rights of workers and ensure that everyone gets to share in the prosperity of our country, a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. We passed a number of really important pieces of legislation in the 47th Parliament. Closing the loopholes that meant some got paid less for doing the same job. Increasing paid parental leave, enabling multi-employer enterprise bargaining, backing increases in minimum wage and some of the low-paid sectors such as childcare and aged care. Only a Labor government sees gender equity as something worth fighting for. We should all be entitled to an equal playing field, equal pay for equal work, equal opportunities in work, sport, in our life choices and in politics. But gender gaps don't close by accident. The same conditions that generated a gap aren't going to magically produce a different result because you wish it. As with everything in life, gender gaps only close when there are deliberate, accountable strategies that are designed to do so. I'm pleased to be part of a Labor caucus that is 56% female, that has overseen a record closing of the gender pay gap in Australian society, that introduced additional paid parental leave, including a use it or lose it clause so that both parents take leave and encourages shared responsibility for parenting, that applied superannuation to paid parental leave, reintroduced the women's budget so that every budget measure has a gender lens placed on it. Only a Labor government will continue to heal our relationship with our overseas trading partners and our neighbours in the Pacific, so important for our security and prosperity. In the last term, we saw a normalisation of relations with China, and I know in my home state of South Australia, winemakers are particularly pleased with the resumption of trade, and I imagine Chinese consumers are pleased to see our top-quality reds back on their shelves. Only a Labor government will protect Medicare and the NDIS. Only a Labor government...
Apologies, the debate is interrupted in accordance with Standing Order 43 and the debate may be resumed at a later hour and the member will be granted leave to continue speaking when the debate is...
Resumption of debate on the proposed address in reply.
The question is that the address be agreed to, and I call the member for Boothby in continuation.
Thank you, Speaker. Only a Labor government will protect Medicare and the NDIS. Only a Labor government will fully fund public schooling, because we know that a good quality education for all is important to our future prosperity as a country and to the future of those children. Only a Labor government will support and grow tertiary education with fee-free TAFE, cuts to HECS debts and paid pracs, because we know that we need a skilled workforce to protect the quality of life we expect as an Australian community. Only a Labor government has delivered 2 back-to-back surplus budgets after a decade of deficit after deficit after deficit drove up our national debt And at the same time as delivering surpluses, this government also brought down inflation. When we came into government in 2022, inflation was at 6.1% and rising. Now it's at 2.4% and falling, and as a result we've had 2 cuts of interest rates. And we've achieved the miracle of keeping unemployment rates down while inflation came down as well. But we know that the last 3 years were just a start. After a lost decade of flat wages, climate denialism and lost opportunities, poor international relationships and deficits, what the Albanese Labor government achieved in the last 3 years is just the start. There is still a lot of work to be done, and it's great to be back in Parliament. I spent the last 3 years of the 47th Parliament representing my constituents here in Canberra, in committees, in decisions and in the House. Back home, I've attended community events, met with countless individuals, door-knocked, advocated to ministers and departments, and I'm always honoured that people choose to share their stories and experiences with me, trust me with their personal details and trust me to advocate for them. At an electorate level, some of the issues that have been talked about for years and years are finally underway. Having worked in the health sector for many years, I do have a particular interest in ensuring we have access to top-quality health services. Flinders Medical Centre in my electorate is the major tertiary hospital serving southern Adelaide and the regions, Boothby, Kingston, Mayo and Barker. But it was opened in 1976, almost 50 years ago, and medical standards and hospital standards have changed quite a lot since then. And the population in southern Adelaide has significantly grown. So in 2022, I was very pleased to be able to commit $200 million of federal money, matched by the state government, for a redevelopment and expansion of Flinders Medical Centre and Repatriation Hospital. This development will see an additional 150 beds. It includes a geriatric evaluation and management unit to provide focused attention on older people coming in through ED. The Margaret Tobin inpatient mental health service will be expanded by an additional 12 beds, and there'll be a new emergency department, new theatres and new ophthalmology facilities. We've also seen additional MRI licences, a very popular urgent care clinic providing bulk billed urgent walk-in services, an endometriosis clinic which is changing the lives of women who've lived for years with chronic pain, a kids hub which will be open any day and will provide mental health services to kids and families, and on top of all this, a 4% increase in bulk billing rates and cheaper medicines, including 60-day prescriptions. In the 48th Parliament, I look forward to delivering a Medicare mental health clinic and a very exciting project in conjunction with Flinders University. This project will mean an additional 1,300 nurses and allied health workers being graduated every year, an additional 10,000 allied health appointments in student-led clinics, and the project will work with the adjacent Flinders Medical Centre to reduce their outpatient lists. They will help older people stuck in hospital beds to recondition so that they can return home and provide free or low-cost appointments for members of the community. We've also had a fair bit of major infrastructure in Boothby. The long-term north-south corridor project continues, and we're now at the groundbreaking stage. There will be 3 large tunnel boring machines and 2 smaller ones in operation. And at the moment, we're building the capsules where the tunnel boring machines will be built, and the entire project is expected to be completed by 2031. We have the Majors Road on-off ramp for the Southern Expressway being built. This was something that the former state Liberal member campaigned heavily on, but when he was elected as part of the former SA Liberal government, he didn't do it. And then when we announced we were doing it, he campaigned against it. This will take commuter traffic off Brighton Road in Boothby, so we're eagerly looking forward to its completion later this year. We have 3 new tram overpasses on Marion Cross and Morford Roads being built at the moment. They form part of campaign promises from both sides of politics in the 2016, 2018, 2019 and 2022 elections. It took the election of an SA Labor government and Labor federal government in 2022 to actually get these projects underway. The boom gates will go next month, and the project will be completed by January next year, including an upgrade of the existing South Road tram overpass. These boom gates are down 20 minutes every hour, so the impact on traffic flow will be amazing. In the 2025 pre-election federal budget, this government committed $525 million to the Greater Adelaide Bypass. This is an enormously big deal in South Australia, and it's something I've been involved in since 2012. Currently, Adelaide is the only capital city in the country that doesn't have a freight bypass. Heavy vehicles making their way from Victoria to WA or the other way, or heading to Outer Harbour or to distribution centres north of the city, have to make the treacherous trip down the very steep southeastern freeway, which we hope they do in low gear, otherwise we end up with major crashes and fatalities at the intersection at the bottom. They then have to make their way through heavy suburban traffic and multiple traffic lights, either along Cross Road in Boothby to South Road or Portrush Road in Sturt. Either way, it's slow, it's often dangerous, and it costs freight drivers in time and fuel. The freight bypass is another much-promised project, with the former Liberal state and federal governments promising it in 2018, then cancelling the project in 2020. This Labor federal government has now put 50% of the money in the budget, and the SA government has submitted a plan to Infrastructure Australia. We are closer than we have ever been to seeing this come to fruition. Speaker, as the Prime Minister promised, our first legislation introduced in the 48th Parliament is to reduce student debts by 20%. Along with paid prac payments for nursing, midwifery, social work and teaching students, and the $10,000 completion payments for apprentices in building trades, this builds on our commitment to ease cost of living pressures on young people and help them build the skills they need for a bright future in high-paying, secure jobs, and also build our skilled workforce in Australia. Every business I speak to tells me about the shortage of skilled workers and how it's limiting their productivity and activity. Every young person I speak to talks about the barriers to getting ahead. Enabling young Australians to get well-paid, secure jobs while also addressing the skills shortage is a win-win. Speaker, before I came to this place, I worked for many years in the housing and homelessness sectors. In this country, we have a 40-year backlog of social and affordable housing. Only this government has, pardon the pun, concrete plans to address this shortage. $43 billion in housing initiatives are rolling out, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be at sod turning, topping off ceremonies, visit construction sites and see the progress, and most excitingly, be at the opening of completed housing developments, talking to the new tenants about how life-changing having a secure base is for them and their families. Make no mistake, this 40-year backlog was never going to be fixed in the last 3 years. It takes a while to build houses on scale or an apartment block, but we're well underway. My friends in the community housing sector are ecstatic about the Housing Australia Future Fund, the HAF, which was under threat from those opposite in the last election. The HAF enables community housing to have certainty to build their large-scale affordable housing this year, while also getting planning approval for another development to start next year and accessing the land to start a development plan for yet another development in following years. Only with this steady pipeline of social and affordable housing will we be able to turn around the housing shortage we have, which is making finding a rental property, let alone a property to purchase, so difficult for the next generation. Deputy Speaker, I'll end where I began, with thanks and gratitude to the people of Boothby, to the volunteers on my campaign, to the staff in my office who diligently serve the people of Boothby, to my colleagues here in the chamber, and to the Cabinet and the Prime Minister for their leadership, not shying away from these big, sticky problems: reconciliation and Indigenous disadvantage, climate change, a fair go for all, gender equity, health, education, the skills shortage and housing. Labor is the party that makes the big changes that make everyone's lives better. We're the party of Medicare, affordable tertiary education, superannuation, NDIS, and Labor is the party that will tackle the new generation of changes needed to deliver a better future for all Australians. Natalia.